At the Christmas party, my millionaire son hugged me and said, "Enjoying the $5,000 a month, Mom?" I went pale and replied, "Son, I'm working 2 jobs." That's when my greedy daughter-in-law choked on her food. The shrew didn't see that coming. I'm Doreen, and at 65 years old, I thought I'd seen every kind of heartbreak life could throw at me. I was wrong. Nothing prepared me for what happened at my son's Christmas party last December, when my entire world crumbled with just one sentence. The party was everything I'd expected from Boyd and his wife, Edna, extravagant, cold, and designed to impress people I'd never met. Their house looked like something out of a magazine, all marble countertops and crystal chandeliers. I stood in the corner of their massive living room wearing my best dress, a navy blue number I'd bought on clearance 3 years ago. Feeling completely out of place among the designer gowns and expensive suits, my feet were killing me. I just finished an 8-hour shift at the grocery store where I work as a cashier, and before that, I'd spent the morning cleaning offices downtown at my age. Working 2 jobs wasn't easy, but it was the only way I could make ends meet. My Social Security barely covered my rent, let alone food and medication. Boyd was across the room looking every inch the successful tech CEO he'd become, tall, confident, wearing a suit that probably cost more than I made in 2 months. He was laughing with some business associates, gesturing with a crystal glass of what I knew was expensive whiskey. My chest swelled with pride despite everything he'd worked so hard to get where he was, and I'd sacrificed everything to make sure he could. Edna floated between groups of guests like she owned the world. She'd always been beautiful blonde, perfectly put together with the kind of confidence that comes from never having to worry about money, but there was something cold in her green eyes whenever she looked at me, something that made me feel small and unwanted. I was reaching for a small sandwich from the appetizer table. When Boyd approached me, he had had a few drinks. I could tell by the slight flush in his cheeks and the way he moved just a little too confidently. "Mom," he said, wrapping his arm around my shoulders in what looked like an affectionate gesture, but felt somehow calculated. "You're looking good, really good." "Thank you, sweetheart," I replied, trying to ignore how forced his smile seemed. "This is a lovely party. You and Edna have outdone yourselves." He nodded, but his eyes had that distant look I'd grown accustomed to over the years, like he was performing the role of a good son rather than actually being one. "I'm glad you're here," he continued, and then his voice took on a tone I'd never heard before, casual, almost mocking. "Enjoying those $5,000 a month. Mom really living it up." I hope the words hit me like a physical blow. I felt the blood drain from my face. My knees nearly buckled. $5,000, what was he talking about? "Honey," I whispered, my voice barely audible above the party chatter. "What $5,000? Boyd's expression shifted from casual confidence to confusion. "The money I send you every month, the $5,000 I've been transferring to your account for the past 3 years. I gripped his arm, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. "Boyd, I'm working 2 jobs. I clean offices at 6 in the morning and work at the grocery store until 8 at night. I haven't received any money from you." The laughter around us seemed to grow louder, more oppressive. Boyd's face went completely white. "That's impossible. I set up automatic transfers. Edna helped me organize everything. She said you were probably too proud to mention it, but that you needed the help." At the mention of her name, we both turned to look at Edna. She was standing near the Christmas tree, a piece of shrimp halfway to her mouth, but she wasn't eating. She was staring at us with the expression of someone who'd just seen a ghost. Our eyes met across the room, and in that instant, I saw the truth, the guilt, the panic, the desperate calculation in her face told me everything I needed to know. The color drained from her carefully made-up complexion, and then she started choking, not choking on the shrimp, choking on the realization that her secret was out. The piece of seafood fell from her hand as she grabbed her throat, making horrible gasping sounds, but I could see it wasn't the food causing her distress. It was fear, pure, undiluted fear. Boyd rushed to her side, patting her back, asking if she was okay. But Edna's eyes never left mine in them. I saw 3 years of lies, 3 years of stolen money, 3 years of watching me struggle while she lived in luxury, funded by what should have been my support. The room felt like it was spinning. Guests were starting to notice the commotion. Someone asked if they should call a doctor, but all I could think about was the mortgage payment I'd missed last month, the prescription I couldn't afford to fill, the nights I'd gone to bed hungry because there wasn't enough money for both rent and food. "The money," I whispered to Boyd as he continued trying to help his choking wife. "Where did you send the money?" He looked up at me, his face a mixture of confusion and growing dread. "To your account, the one Edna set up for you. She said it would be easier to manage that way, that you were getting older and might have trouble keeping track of finances." Edna had stopped choking, but she was still gasping, still staring at me with those terrified eyes. She knew I knew, and she knew that her perfect little world was about to come crashing down. I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest, not anger, not yet, just a terrible, crystal clear understanding of how completely I'd been betrayed by the 2 people who should have protected me most. The party continued around us, but everything had changed. The laughter sounded hollow, the light seemed dimmer, and I realized that this beautiful house, this lavish lifestyle, this perfect Christmas celebration, it had all been built at least partially on money that was meant to keep me from working myself to death at 65. Edna finally caught her breath, straightening her expensive dress and trying to compose herself, but her hands were shaking, And when she looked at me again, I saw something I'd never seen in her eyes before. She was terrified of me, and for the first time in 3 years of struggle and sacrifice, I felt something other than exhaustion and resignation. I felt power standing in that opulent living room watching my daughter-in-law's face flush with guilt and panic. My mind drifted back to a time when Boyd needed me more than anything else in the world. It seems almost cruel how memories work in your darkest moments. They remind you of everything you've lost. I was 32 when my husband Robert died a heart attack at 35. No warning, no time to prepare. 1 minute, he was laughing at Boyd's silly 5-year-old jokes over breakfast.